As kind of a preface or preparatory for that, try to understand that the focus here on bilingual education is not so much about people learning two languages, as part of our educational curriculum, which is important, right? I mean, it's secondary. The focus on bilingual education is about people who immigrate to the United States, kids, elementary age kids and high school kids as well, having the opportunity to study subject matter in school in their native language. All right, you follow that? So the bilingual education issue that is addressed differently by states, different states, is what we're going to be kind of focusing on as an issue. All right, now that bleeds into the issue of monolingualism of most Americans. Okay, and this is also a topic, an issue that we can address and talk about, which we will do. But the focus of the workshop is about your taking a stand, all right, and making an argument for or against bilingual education in schools. All right, understand the difference? And the guidance for that you're going to find in the second part of chapter 7, which we're going to discuss in more detail next Tuesday. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say that the workshop 4 has to be submitted before you take the exam, before you take exam 3, all right? Exam 3 will be online next Thursday at 11 o'clock, okay? So, plan on sitting for the exam like you have in the past at 11 o'clock next Thursday, and anytime before 11 o'clock next Thursday, complete the workshop 4 assignment. All right? Okay, so we're going to come back to that in a minute, or not a minute, but maybe 45 minutes. Same as everything we've done in the past, as far as that is, okay? All right, so today we're going to finish up chapter 6 and get into the first part of chapter 7. And the second part of chapter, we talked about Hofstede's categories last time, and we spent quite a bit of time talking about the distinctions between these dichotomies that he lays out: individualism, collectivism, masculinity, femininity, power distance, and so on, all of which is very useful. But today we're going to focus more on the continuum, right? So what we're addressing here in this chapter is the Continuum Principle, which is to say that there are not such discrete categories in most instances. They're useful for us to understand what's going on in a different culture that is more sociocentric or collectivist or high context or individualist, egocentric, low context. So they're useful, but what we want to try to focus on is how we can loosen them up a little bit in our perception, right? In our perception and in our judgment of others. So as a way to get to that process, the author introduces 2 additional primary concepts, and those are digital and analogical communication. Okay, digital and analogical forms of communication. Right? So we talked about this a little bit last time. So what do you mean by digital communication? What's a digit? What's a digital form of communication? What's the principle behind digitalization? Anybody have any ideas? I know you were all up late last night watching the World Series, right? Huh? Cubs won! He's got a Cub hat on. Check it out. I almost wore mine today. Mine's old.
You just buy that last night? Just kidding, I'm never goes that.
I was baptized a Cub fan. So I've lived with this for I won't tell you how many years.
Back to the Future finally got something.
I know. They were off 1 year.
Yeah.
Right? Cubs supposed to win last year, Back to the Future. Well, I'm sorry for the Cleveland Indian fans. Too bad, they can't both win because, what a team. An incredible series and an incredible game last night. I was there all the way to 1 a.m. For the 10th inning. So, yeah, I saw a funny piece on Facebook this morning. There were Cub fans, dead Cub fans celebrating in heaven. All drunk. It was drunk Cub fans celebrating in heaven. So, that's where that's at. Chicago's having a good day. I think Chicago's off today. Nobody's going to work. All right. Well, digital. This is a segue into digital. Forms of thinking. What's digital about what just happened last night? Yeah.
It's being streamed to television across America and everywhere else.
No, that's digitalized in a technological sense, right? So you've got a bunch of ones and zeros that are flying all over, right, the atmosphere. In an electronic sense, it was digitalized, okay? But in terms of the teams themselves, it's either or, right? It's a zero-sum game. Remember the zero-sum we talked a little bit about? Zero-sum, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. They'll keep playing until somebody wins and somebody loses. That's digital. Now we have a winner and we have a loser. Too bad for Cleveland, although I don't feel too bad for them since, they won the NBA championship last year, so they've had their moment. But somebody's got to lose. It's either or, one or the other. So digitalization is about discrete units. It's either 1 or 0. It's either win or lose. It's either good or bad. And there's no gray area between them. Almost winning doesn't count. Okay? So that's digitalization. How does digitalization work in terms of our perceptual bias? All right? Let's think of that in those terms for a minute. How does digitalization work in terms of our perceptual bias? Can somebody think of an example or explain what's going on there? You make snap judgments? Yeah.
Like maybe we either think we failed the test or we didn't, kind of.
Okay, all right, now I'm talking about in terms of perception of other people. All right, let's think in terms of perception of other people.
Oh, like you're either Japanese or they're Japanese or not.
Okay, or, but think in terms of attributes, yeah.
If we think that everything is distinct, one, a symbol means something, like in digital, then we will make a judgment based on what we think that means, and then we'll slide in the relation.
Okay, good, right. So we have a discrete unit that has a meaning that is maybe conventionally recognized, and we make an attribution based upon that of someone who we meet. Okay? All right, so, Veronica, you have anything?
I was going to say, if you hear someone speaking in a different language than you automatically think that because you're in the same vicinity, they're talking bad about you.
Okay, so you make a perceptual bias. So we talked about this a little bit before in terms of, people going and having manicures, right? For example, you make a judgment about the foreign person, often Chinese or Korean or Asian person who's doing your fingernails, and they're talking to someone else and laughing, and you make a judgment or attribution or assumption that they're laughing at you because you have these funky fingernails. I don't know, why would they? I'm sorry, I don't mean to. So what else? You make snap judgments of other people based upon their characteristics.
Like whether they're helpful or not, or nice.
Okay, all right. So you look at someone and you make a snap judgment of their demeanor based on their appearance, right? Okay, good. This is digitalization, yeah.
Well, like, for like multiple occasions, I thought that I was like someone from like the first impression or like something like that, and then I don't, or the opposite. Like, I'll think that I won't like someone at all, and then we'll end up being really good friends.
Okay, good. So you give them a chance, one way or the other. which is always good.
That's important to do, but human nature is to not.
Well, this is really a big issue because it's not just about human nature, it's also about socialization and training. So we have to be careful about what human nature is. Typically we're socialized in particular ways. And with that socialization come prejudices and biases that we make. So we make attributions based upon that socialization process and our own personal experience perhaps. So of course, what we're leading to here is how we tend to categorize a person or a group based upon those prejudices, stereotypes, biases, and so on. Okay? So this is the issue of digitalization as far as intercultural communication goes. And it works both ways, okay? I certainly have experienced being digitalized, if you will, when I lived in Japan and when I lived in Morocco, by Japanese and by Moroccans based upon their perceptual biases. I mean, it's a two-way street in how we categorize people. Oh, it's an American, so therefore he is going to be like this, or he's not going to be like that, or we need to do this, okay? So it's human, it's certainly human, as Patrick said, but it's a matter of socialization. It's not about our nature necessarily, okay? It's about our socialization. Yeah.
Isn't, like perceptual bias the whole reason we created that online forums, like the real bad Arabs?
Yes, exactly. This is exactly what happens. So these are stock characters, right? So film industry creates stock characters that fit a stereotype that will serve as the basis for conflict and violence in the film that will draw audiences, and sell movies. All right, that's a digitalization, it's a typing. We're going to talk more about stereotypes and prejudice in chapter 9. So there's different kinds of stereotypes, right? There are stereotypes that are grounded in experience, but typically they're overgeneralizations. Okay, so we'll come back to stereotypes later. Okay, so this is what's at stake in our discussion about how people are categorized. Okay, I mean, I'm sure people with disabilities, for example, have often expressed to me, and Patrick and Veronica can verify this or not, but that they get talked down to. Literally, it's like, I'm talking down to you instead of, meeting your eyes. It makes a difference, doesn't it, if someone is, and it's talked like childish, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, just because you're in a wheelchair doesn't mean you're childish. You have to be talked to like a child, right? I mean, does this happen? This is an experience often that people with physical disabilities who are in chairs often experience. It's a stereotyping or it's an assumption about them. Or if someone doesn't speak your language, you talk louder. It's not that they're deaf, and it's not that they're stupid. It's just that they don't understand your language. Yeah.
Can I also say another stereotype? that
Sure,
happens?
absolutely.
Like if I'm out with my family and like my parents are around and like someone that they know that hasn't necessarily met me, they'll talk to my parents instead of asking me the question.
Excellent example.
And then they'll think that my parents are doing the world a huge favor by lifting the burden of raising a disabled child.
And they speak to you in third person. I mean, they speak to your parents about you in third
and I'm
person.
just like,
She, as if you're not there or you can't hear.
I'm right here.
Exactly.
That happens sometimes too.
Yeah. So this is it's a dehumanization in a way, right? When we do these kinds of things. And I must say, I don't know what your political proclivities are, but this has been the driving force of this campaign, especially with Trump. Because what's he done? He's categorized people from the very beginning. Mexicans, Muslims, women, and so on. It's a digitalization process, a categorization that is used as a prop, right, to get attention, really, in his campaign. All right, so, this is the issue and this kind of the stakes of our discussion about digital and analogical. And of course, what we want to try to do is loosen up those categories in our own minds and in our own experience, okay? And keep an open mind towards others and not quickly categorize them based upon assumptions or attributions based on their appearance or their associations or their affiliations or their ethnicity or gender or age or anything else. All right? Okay, so the analogical then is about the continuum. It's about the continuum. It's moving towards a recognition of the other as viable as a human being. All right? It's a movement towards what we referred to early in the class of recognition of the generic cultural characteristics that we share in common. What is being human, right? Their humanity. So the analogical is to move away from strict categories and reacting based upon the assumptions associated with those strict categories and opening up a space in which the other person can express themselves and can be recognized in their humanity and what we share in common as human beings. So this is a movement towards a kind of universal ethic that we're going to talk about more in chapter 10. Okay, so does that make sense? Any questions about any of that? All right. So I mean, there's a number of concepts in the text that are bolded and that the author elaborates on, and you can raise questions about any of those. I want to look at the digital and the analogical. I'm going to provide some more examples. This is, again, based on notes that are posted up and are available to you online. Digital and analogical communication, forms of communication, have many, many different kinds of applications, okay? And they work together all the time in order to, form the basis for understanding and communication, for communication and understanding. All right, so right now I'm using both digital and analogical forms in my talk. What are the digital, what are the analogical, and how do they match up? Or I guess match up is not the right metaphor. How are they integrated? What's digital about my expression right now? What's the digital aspects? Not just I'm talking, but in talking, what am I using? Huh?
Gestures.
Okay, so what are gestures?
Movement.
They're movement. So what's movement? I mean, thinking in terms of digital and analogical forms, what is it? It's analogical. Movement, bodily expression, all of these kinds of forms of tonality, the nonverbal aspects, and their fluidity, expressiveness, are analogical. It's analogical. It's part of the body. The bodily expression is analogical. Okay? What's digital about my expression? I mean, I can turn the nonverbal into digital forms, right? I'm going to do it right now. You ready? Cubs win. Because what's this? It's a discrete unit of meaning. I've just turned the fluidity of my gestures and tonality and so on that are analogical into a discrete unit. Cubs win. All right. Okay, so what else is digital about my expression?
We can interpret most of what you're saying in a few different ways.
That's, okay, you can interpret it in different ways. All right, you're getting at the meanings, right? So how are meanings expressed? I mean, the meanings are expressed in many ways, but I think you're overthinking this.
Meaning is analogical, the words are digital.
The digital words, that's right. Words are discrete, but they're connected to form meaning, analogically, okay? So each word that I use is
Digital.
a digit with a discrete meaning for itself, but meaning is not in the word. People mean. This is a principle of general semantics. Words don't mean, people mean. People mean in their expression, all right? So we go from the denotative digit of a word to the connotative meaning that's expressive, that incorporates the analogical. Okay, you following me here?
Yeah.
What's another example in the arts? Let's move to the arts a little bit of digital and analogical relationships. Any of you musicians? Anybody play music? You play music? You read music?
Yes.
You read music? Okay, so what's your instrument?
Piano.
Piano. Okay, so what's the digital and analogical aspects of playing the piano?
I guess certain notes mean certain things, however, you can add like a sharp or a flat next to it to make it mean something different.
But even a sharp or a flat is going to get, it's a digit, it's a no, I mean, it's distinct. Once you're in the key, right? So let's say you're, I don't know, you're in B flat or whatever, okay? You're playing a key, and any note that fits into that key is going to work. If you play a wrong note, if you go out of key, it sticks out. It's a digit that doesn't fit into the analogical flow of the key, right? Okay, you understand this? I just run out of, I think I ran out of power. Does that make sense? So the notes that you learn, the notes that you study and learn as you play your instrument are digits. You got to learn to read the music. Now some people don't learn how to read music, but they become accomplished musicians. Right? Any of you like that? Like you pick up the guitar and you sit at the piano and you try to pick up a key or play just by ear? That's analogical. That's an analogical method of playing music. You're not reading the music, right? Note for note for note, which becomes linked in with analogical as you become expressive in your playing, because it's the relationship of the notes that express a meaning. I studied piano too when I was a kid. I took 10 years of piano lessons. All right? And then I quit cold turkey when I was like 16 or 17. I mean, I was good. I was a good player. And then I quit cold turkey, didn't play for years, and then I sat down again to play a piece that I played fluently when I was 15, and I couldn't do it. It was extremely frustrating. So then I thought I'd play with jazz chords and play around. And I couldn't follow, I mean, it was extreme. So you know what I've done now? I just listen to a song that I want to play. And then I find the key and I play around with it. That's analog. So I've shifted, because I can't, my sister who also played, and still, she never quit. It's very frustrating. She will sit down and play this fluent, beautiful music, reading the music, and I'm very jealous of her. But I have to do it only by tone now, only by tone. And that's an analog, it's a shift from the digital to the analogical. Okay, you following me here on the differences? One more example. Any of you dance? Any dancers in here? I'm not going to ask you to dance. You don't have to. No dancers? Okay, all right, we have a few dancers. Great. Well, would you want to come up? No, I'm just kidding. What kind of music do you dance? So it's the same thing, right? I mean, if you're a serious dancer, whatever form of dance that you do, whether it's, you know, ballet or hip hop or whatever it is you do, you are, or tap dance, you have to learn the steps. You have to study and learn the steps, and if you're in a troupe or a group dancing together, you got to get those steps down individually. Thank you. So the dance itself, of course, in order for it to be a good dance, is or should be also incorporate the analogical. So it's the fluidity of the movement once you've embodied the digital aspects that make a dance good, you know, or beauty. It's a work of beauty. Music, dance, other forms, other art forms as well. Okay, so this is the digital and analogical on the you know, more general conception of it with these different examples. Let's look at relationships. Any of you have conflicts with significant others, friends, siblings, spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends? When you have a conflict, what usually happens when you're talking? What are you focusing on? Huh?
Winning.
Winning, that's right. You're winning and losing, right? You're going to win the argument. And if you're going to win the argument, and you're trying to win the argument, winning means you're going to what? Convince the other person that you're right, right? So you want to somehow persuade, and the more you try to persuade the other person that you're right, what are they doing? Same thing. They're trying to persuade you that they're right, or that, you know, it's righteousness. Battles of righteousness. This is conflict. This is a collision associated with conflict. And when we get into those kinds of conflicts, what are we referring to? We're referring to the content, right? We're referring to the subject of the conflict. And you have one interpretation and punctuation, we covered punctuation of the conflict, and the other person has a different interpretation and punctuation of the conflict, and you clash because you're focusing on the content of the conflict and you're both wanting to be right. That's digitalization of conflict. How do you get out of it? Yeah.
You have to be analytical in a lot of situations.
Well, it can be analytical. I mean, analogical?
Yeah, analogical.
Analogical. Okay, how do you become analogical? That's exactly right. How do you become analogical? In a conflict with a significant other, huh?
You have to look past the digital aspects of the situation.
Okay, that's pretty abstract. You're right. Give me, how do you do that?
Try to look at all aspects of whatever started the conflict from different perspectives.
Okay, good. You have to take the other's perspective. And in taking the other's perspective, what are you focusing on? You're outside the content now, right? And you're trying to understand the other person's what?
It seems like digital is what they're actually saying, and analogical is like whatever they were going through before or what they're...
Well, analogical is about the relationship. Okay? It's about feelings and the relationship. So to shift and to try to manage and potentially resolve the conflict, you got to get out of the competition on who's right and who's wrong, about the content. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. There may be stakes involved where the content is important. I'm not saying content is not important. Certainly content is important. If the other is lying, has done something and is lying about it, and you have evidence, hey, digitalization is a good thing, right? Here's my evidence. You follow me? Here's my evidence that you did this. And it's pretty clear, and you're denying it, so you're lying. So that's don't get me wrong, in some instances, if someone has transgressed, violated a rule or a norm, and you have evidence that that's the case, all right? So that person has to fess up if they want the relationship to have integrity. If they don't fess up, then the relationship is destroyed, right? I mean, deception, lying, manipulation, exploitation of others is wrong. I mean, you're doing wrong damages to the other person if they're a significant other. Okay, so the focus on the relationship then is to try to regain integrity in the relationship, but not at the expense of your own dignity. Does that make sense? You want integrity in the relationship, but not at the expense of your own dignity, where you become subservient to the other's manipulative power trip or whatever it may be. Yeah.
I feel like, at least in my personal experience, oftentimes if you're having an argument and you try to step away from the digital and say, like, let's not think about a winner and a loser, let's talk about it, the other person tends to just go, oh, you're just saying that because you lost. You're just saying that because you're wrong, and you don't want to find a winner. And it's like...
Yeah, so what's a good response to that? Fuck you? There you go.
Yeah.
And walk away? I mean, I don't know. What's a good response to that? Because what have they just done? They've actually introduced a meta level of the conflict. What are they saying? They've shifted the focus away from the content that you're disagreeing on and saying, you are saying that because you acknowledge that you're wrong. And so now actually this is a problem. And problems are good. What you don't want is distortion. You don't want deception and distortion. You want to keep it at the level of the problem. And as you move into a meta-communicative mode, it's analogical. You're focusing on the relationship. Okay? And the problem here is that you can move into a meta-communicative mode and now you're arguing about something else. Right? Which maybe you feel insulted or something, But meta-communication is a way out of the either-or digitalization. Okay, y'all got this? Okay, now how does this work interculturally? We have many differences between and among people from different cultures in the way they express themselves. And we bring to it our biases and our prejudices and our stereotypes and make interpretations that can be simply wrong. So you are arguing over something, or you have a disagreement, okay, or you're making, bad judgments about others based upon, wrong perceptions. Hey, you didn't fix this well enough. It's okay. It's all right.
That's the battery.
Oh, it's back. Sorry. All right, so this is the intercultural problematic at an interpersonal, concrete interpersonal level. All right, at a concrete interpersonal level. And so this is what we have to work with in changing our perceptions and attributions and attitudes towards others. In fact, what you have to do is give the other or others a chance. And this is a hard lesson to learn because you have these reflexive, knee-jerk kinds of reactions to how people behave, how they act towards you, how they express themselves, their levels of intensity or lack thereof, and that gets us into trouble in our interpersonal relationships and relationships between groups as well. All right? Any questions about any of that? So, in the book, the author, I guess I do want to set this up here. The author lays out these continua. So I'll put this up here. So you can see, this is on page 149. So this is, on 149, it's about attitudes toward other continuum. And bottom of the page. So it's kind of a positive, negative ends here, where what we want to try to develop is empathy and recognition. Recognition comes with empathy. If you can't recognize the other, their legitimacy, their vulnerabilities, their own precarities, their own humanity, then you can never empathize with them. All right, so the other end of the continuum is discrimination, where you discriminate against a person or a group based upon the digital kinds of judgments, the categorization process that you're going through. Okay? So Donald Trump says, oh, that judge that's adjudicating the Trump University lawsuits is Mexican. So therefore, it can never be a fair judgment. He should be recused. He should recuse himself from adjudicating these lawsuits against me on the basis of his ethnicity. This is what Donald Trump said. And why should he do that? Because of Donald Trump's prejudice against Mexicans, which he has expressed fervently over and over and over again. So, because I have fervently disparaged, right? Because I have fervently disparaged Mexicans publicly over and over again for a year, this is his logic, and because this judge who's adjudicating this lawsuit against me, lawsuits, is Mexican, therefore, he cannot be fair. Now take that logic and apply it in other ways. It's fallacious, right? It's fallacious, yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's honestly, I feel like, no offense to Trump supporters in here.
No offense to Trump supporters, all right? Me neither. I mean, I'm not talking about Trump supporters here, I'm talking about his logic.
I feel like if he hadn't said what he said about Mexicans beforehand, or if he said it in a different way, then the whole judge being Mexican issue wouldn't be a problem.
That's exactly right. Of course, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, so we use the same, I mean, let's be fair. Let's use a Hillary example. Huh? There's lots of Hillary examples.
I think he has a reason to be biased, because of course the Mexican, or the reason to be way, because of course the Mexican judge is going to be biased.
That's right. So we have a deductive logic in a way, right? All Mexicans are suspect. You're a Mexican, you're suspect. Right? All Muslims are suspect. you're a Muslim, you're suspect. So this is a deductive logic that's used in order to categorize and disparage and then ultimately discriminate against an ethnic group. Okay, so this is, this is kind of the continuum that in most interaction that we have with others who are different, significantly different, perhaps radically different than we are, that we go through. We place ourselves on this in one way or another. Y'all know Ron Wilson? Ron Wilson is our social equity director on campus, great guy. He's African American. He was talking in a forum not long ago. Anybody know Ron? Great guy, okay, so he's very professional, very great, and he said that he's a big guy, he's like, I don't know, 6'2", 6'3". He was walking to lunch, left campus, crossed the street at the stoplight, and he heard locks going down in cars all around him. Okay? Because why? He's a black man. So, boop, 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 boop. Get those locks down. There's a black man. It's bizarre. This is just over here, walking off campus to go to lunch downtown. Those, in a way you can say that's a literal digital action. It's not about avoidance. It's not just avoidance. It's disparagement and discrimination. Yeah.
I noticed the same thing, like with when I'm out in public, like of course not here on campus, because, there's such a large disability population here on campus, and everyone's nice and I love it here, but back in New York, where I'm from, people tend to keep to themselves, and usually, like, if I'm out in public, people won't just move, like, out of the way. Like, they'll try and make it seem like they're moving out of the way. But, like, they'll sometimes, like, go on to the opposite side of the street.
To get away from you?
Yeah, and then they'll, like, look back and they'll whisper and they're like, oh, come on.
Because you're dangerous.
Let's go. Yeah, because, disabilities are contagious now.
Disabilities are contagious, is that what you said?
Yeah, apparently they're contagious.
So avoidance, but implicit disparagement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's avoidance, but implicit disparagement. So we want to move to the sensitivity and acceptance side of this continuum, which is not just about tolerance. We're going to talk more about tolerance later. It's about civility. We're talking about civility here. So civility is an analogical phenomenon. You give the other the recognition he or she deserves as a human being. And you don't have to develop an intimate relationship with the other, but you grant them the recognition. You're sensitive to their situation. You have no idea what they've lived through. You want to accept them and not be suspicious. But we've moved into this age of suspicion that dominates a lot of our interactions from the national down to the interpersonal level. Okay, so there's a number of different examples in the book about how we can deal with the digitalization process and work towards some linkage, some overlap, and understanding how those overlaps function analogically, right? We're looking at ways to link up to others in a civil way. So we'll come back to this again when we talk about communication ethics.